What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Ramblin' Rams podcast. I'm James Torillo here with my guy Jordan. Jordan, it is finally that time of year. It is draft month almost. Today's March 30th, so it's almost draft month. Less than a month to go until the draft night. How do we feel?
I feel pretty good. We already used our first round pick this year on our boy Trent McDuffie, so
hmm
pretty satisfied with that acquisition and use of the draft pick. And I'm excited to see what else we do. I've got a few ideas just from rumors that I've heard of players we're interested in, but with this team, truly, you never know. I feel like sometimes they don't even know what they're gonna do, honestly.
Yeah, I think some of my predictions here are like could be way off or they could be spot on because they're one of those teams where it's like you have no idea what they're going to do. Like sometimes like a few years ago they drafted Stetson Bennett late in like the fourth round, but they also got Puka Nacua after that. Puka Nacua is now the best receiver in the league, and Stetson Bennett hasn't played a snap in the regular season in his career. So it's like weird stuff happens like that, and they're both still on the Rams. So there's weird things like that, but they also find ways to find guys late, like Puka Nacua, for example. Cooper Kupp was round three, pick 69. Uh, they've had multiple late round picks turn out to be very good players. So we'll see what happens. But we're going to go back and forth and say who we think the Rams are going to draft at that pick. Their picks are round 1, pick 13, round 2, pick 61, round 3, pick 93, round 6, pick 207, round 7, pick 232, round 7, pick 251, and round 7, pick 252. So they have three 7-round picks, no picks in the fourth or fifth because of the Trent McDuffie trade, and a pick in round 1, 2, 3, and 6. So let's start out with round 1, pick 13. Do you want me to go first or do you want to go first?
Yeah, you lead us off.
All right. Um, round 1, pick 13. I was very torn between a few guys here. I don't know if I want them to take this guy, but I think they're going to, and that's Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end from Oregon. I'm I don't know if picking a tight end with that pick is the right move, to be honest, but I think Sadiq is going to be a star. I really do. This reminds me of a few years ago when the Rams. I don't even know if you know about this, but that draft where they took Jared Verse at pick 24, something like that, uh,
Hmm.
they tried to trade up so they could get Brock Bowers, which
I
was
did know that.
yeah, which was weird because I remember seeing that at the time, being like, why would we do that? Like, I think Brock Bowers is going to be good, but we have Tyler Higbee. We still had good options at the time. I think that's the offseason where we signed Colby Parkinson. So it was weird. It was like we don't have to get Brock Bowers, but I almost look back at it, and of course I love Verse and Braden Fisk, but I wouldn't mind having Brock Bowers on this offense. So I think it's a similar situation where we're like, we don't need a tight end, but maybe that's just the best player available at pick 13. Because if you even look at pictures of this dude is jacked. He has legs for arms. This dude is like ripped. He's a football player to say the least. And I think this would be a good pick. I don't know if I love picking a tight end, but I would love picking Kenyon Sadiq from Oregon.
Wow. Yeah, I'm shocked, honestly, that you had Kenyon Sadiq. Truly, I'm shocked. And I say that because I also had Kenyon Sadiq
Let's
picked in
go.
the first round, honestly. And I think for me, I think it is a realistic pick. I don't necessarily know if I personally believe that's their top option, but I'm not sure anyone quite knows that. I've heard a lot of rumors about what they're going to do in the first round. I've even heard the crazy Bryce Love. Is that the guy's name? The running back from Notre Dame.
I'm not sure.
Uh,
I think
I
you're
don't
right
remember his
though.
name. The running back from Notre Dame, Love. I've heard rumors that we're interested in him, and I don't know what that would require in terms of trading up. But I think Kenyon Sadiq is a realistic pick. I know he has experience playing with Terrence Ferguson, so I don't think it's unrealistic to think that they would be playing together once again. And as far as our other tight ends go, thinking like, well, you already have four tight ends on the roster. Well, we run 13 personnel more than anyone in the league. We run 12 personnel a ton as well. And Tyler Higbee, this is probably his last year. And Davis Allen and Colby Parkinson, I'm pretty sure this is their last year of their contract as well with the Rams. So this would give you a plan at tight end for the future, in my opinion. I think it'd be a good fit with Terrence Ferguson. They already have experience playing together at Oregon, and that offense had a lot of success. And I think Oregon is just a factory for effective offensive players. And I agree with you that if it was me, it might not necessarily be my favorite pick, but I think it's a realistic pick. I
Right.
think it could be what we do for sure. And I'd be fine with it. I'd be fine picking a tight end at that spot because I think we're truly a pretty complete team. So at this point, I think the only way you can really make yourself better is by adding star caliber players
Yeah.
at skill position and basically defense.
That's a good point because there's only so many holes they have to fill. The biggest hole they had to fill this offseason was the secondary. They did that with McDuffie and Watson already. So, to be honest, I think all the holes they needed to fill, they either did or will do with trades or free agency. I think the whole draft is pretty much just going to be planning for the future, which sounds obvious because it's the draft, they're all young guys, but I think there's two ways you can go about the draft, and that's taking guys to help your team right now. Like, I think helping the team right now for the Rams would be taking a guy like, I don't know, maybe Makai Lemon, just so they have three really good wide receivers because they don't really have a wide receiver three right now. I think that's a move that could help them for the future too, but also for next season. I think the way they're going to go about the draft is just how can we still be contenders after the Matthew Stafford era, after Tyler Higbee, after guys like that? How can we still be good? Which is why I say I think they're going to take Kenyon Sadiq so that they have a tight end after Tyler Higbee, and the two of them could play together for year two while Tyler Higbee, like you said, probably plays his last season. So we both have Sadiq going to the Rams at pick 13. What about pick 61? Round two, pick 61. Um, I'll start us off again. I'm going to go Antonio Williams, wide receiver from Clemson. I think this is the only move where I think you maybe look at them and they say, okay, maybe this move is a little bit just for next season because it's not like unless he turns into a late round stud like Puka Nakua, Antonio Williams is a good player, but I don't think he's just automatically going to be some, superstar like Puka Nakua or Devontae Adams right away. But I think he'd be a solid number three receiver for the Rams. I do. Um, and then also, if this is Devontae Adams last year, you'd like to have someone with a little bit of experience playing next to Puka Nakua next year, even if we go out and we get someone to replace Devontae Adams, or Devontae Adams plays another year or two or three, who knows. But he did say he was going to retire when Stafford did, so I would assume this is last year. So, yeah, pick 261, I have Antonio Williams, wide receiver from Clemson.
I like that. I also had a wide receiver picked in the second round, but I didn't copy you this time. I
Mm,
have us picking wide receiver Chris Bell out of Louisville.
okay.
And I saw Jake Ellenbogen did a video talking about him and like our interests possibly. And I did a little more research on him after that because I was very curious about the player. And I thought it was really interesting, his video and the upside there. Because so Chris Bell, he's coming off of an ACL injury from Louisville, but he's like 6'2", I think 220. So a big target, a big play guy, someone who can really beat you over the top like Tutu Atwell,
Mm,
but he's a much bigger target than Tutu Atwell is. So I think it would be kind of like you said, a plan for the future move because he is, coming off of an injury and might not be ready at the start of the season. So you can draft him in the second round and bring him in as your fourth, fifth, maybe even sixth wide receiver and still like sign a guy too to come in at that three wide receiver spot and start alongside Adams and Cup and I'm Cup, sorry, Puka. Old habits die hard. But yeah, I'm praying we don't trade Adams too. I heard McVay talk a little bit more about that. But I think Chris Bell would be a really good addition with this wide receiver room that we already have. And like you said, I think he's one of those guys who could maybe come in once he's back from injury and be a contributor next year, but also maybe be a long term running mate with Puka given his size and upside.
Yeah, I love that pick. We both take receivers in the second round, according to us. I would. I mean, obviously, I predicted it, but I think they're gonna do the same. I think they go with a wide receiver in one of the first few rounds, whether it's round one, two, or three. I'd be surprised if
Yeah.
they don't take one wide receiver. No more than that, but I think they take one wide receiver for sure. Moving on to round three, pick 93. This is a very important pick for the Rams, I think, and I think it's more important than people realize because the Rams don't pick after this until round six because they traded picks round four and five picks to the Chiefs in that McDuffie deal. The Rams love taking guys from the Michigan Wolverines in round three. We saw it with Blake Corum. I believe Josiah Stewart was a round three pick. That's 2 years in a row they took I believe they took a Wolverine in round three. I think they're going to do the same with one of my favorite guys from the Michigan team last year, edge rusher Derek Moore from Michigan. He reminds me a little bit of Verse, just the way he plays. He's also number 8. Just like the way he plays defensively, just kind of reminds me of him. And I could see them doing this because, like I said, they took a Wolverine in round 3 of the last 2 years. This would be such a good pick because Moore was the best player on that Michigan defense last year. I really do believe that. And we've seen a lot of good players from this Michigan defense over the last few years, like Mason Graham, Will Johnson, and oh, why am I blanking on his name? This the defensive back on the Commanders uh, from the Michigan championship team. Why the heck am I forgetting his name right now? Um,
Man, I don't remember. Hmm.
gosh, I can't remember the dude's name right now, but you get my point. I think the Rams have really liked taking some guys from the Michigan Wolverines over the last few years, and I think they do the same with Derek Moore. I think this would be a great pick, pairing him up. Just even if he doesn't get in there every rep, just him with guys like Kobe Turner, Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, Josiah Stewart, Poona Ford. I think I think this would be a really good pick for the Rams.
I like that pick. I would really like that, honestly. I think we do still need some help at the edge position, so I think that's a realistic
Yeah.
pick for sure. I think that's a I like how you worded that. A Michigan guy. I think
Yeah.
that'd be a good pick to bring in with the defense. I stayed on the offensive side. I can't help myself.
Okay.
I went with a guy that I know for a fact that we are interested in. I know we've had meetings with him, some prior draft talk, and I know we still haven't had a backup quarterback.
Can I take
And
a
I don't know
guess?
if this guy. Go
Can I
ahead.
take a guess? Is it Drew
Yes,
Aller?
yes. No, shout out my brother. He's a big Penn State fan. I
Okay.
didn't pick Drew Allar, but I think that's realistic as well if we did go that route. And speaking on
Okay.
him, I've heard some people compare him to a Josh Allen comparison just in terms of his running ability and throwing power. I am a big Josh Allen fan, as you know, so I
Hmm.
don't foresee Drew Allar turning into that. I think that's a realistic pick we could go here as well. But I went with LSU quarterback Garrett Nussmeier.
Okay.
Someone I know that we're very interested in, pro style type quarterback. If memory suits me, I think his dad is a coach on the Saints. I'm like
Okay.
90% sure on that. So, guy who's been around football his whole life, smart kid. I know, like I said, we're interested. I know he's got a pretty decent arm. I'm not a huge fan of any of the quarterbacks outside of Fernando Mendoza. I will say, speaking back on the first round, I would not be surprised if we did theoretically do a trade down, whether it's out of the first round or just way down in the first round. So you still have that theoretical fifth year option, like if you traded down to like pick 32 or whatever it may be. and picked Ty Simpson from Alabama.
Mm,
I think
okay.
that could be realistic if you did trade down from the first round spot. But sticking here in the third round, I picked Garrett Nussmeier. I think Drew Aller is very realistic as well. I think it's somewhat likely we take a quarterback in this draft, whenever that may be. I'm like I said, I'm not a huge fan of all these quarterbacks in this draft, but you never know. Quarterback, in my opinion, is probably the hardest position to judge out of any position, and it's got a lot to do with situations and stuff like that. So, I went with Garrett Nussmeier. I know we're interested in him. I think it could be realistic, but we'll see.
All right. I like that pick. I would love them to draft a quarterback in any round this year. However, I actually don't have them, spoiler alert, I don't have them taking a quarterback at all. I don't think they're going to. I want them to. I would love to. Love is a strong word, but I would like them to maybe take a chance on Drew Aller in the second round. Or I don't think they're in the right position to get Ty Simpson unless they trade back in the first round. Um, I like that pick though. Maybe they take a quarterback in one of the three rounds. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think they're going to. But another thing that I did want to mention, since we're on the topic of backup quarterbacks, the Rams have still not re-signed Jimmy Garoppolo. That's definitely something to bring up because apparently he met with the Arizona Cardinals and it didn't work. Nothing happened.
Oh wow. Mm.
So another thing that I did read was that they are looking into more likely going the route of signing a veteran backup than drafting one. That's what I read into. I believe it was Rams Wire that I drafted that I read that on. So
Yeah.
shout out to them. Uh, I would be surprised if the Rams didn't get a guy like either Jimmy Garoppolo back as their backup, or they bump up Stetson Bennett as their backup, and maybe they sign Garoppolo to the practice squad, something like that. Because having a guy like Garoppolo as your backup the last few years has been. I'm not a fan of Garoppolo just because he was a Niner, and I always thought he was a bit overhyped as the Niners quarterback. Hence why he's a backup now. But yeah, the last few years of him being our backup was like, okay, before that he was a starter. So, you kind of have a starter as a backup. So that's good. But now it's been like 2, 3 years since he's been a starter. So I don't think we can really say that anymore. I mean, when was
Right.
Jimmy Garoppolo's played like 1 or 2 games in the last 3 years. So can we really say that anymore that we have a starting caliber quarterback as our backup? I don't think we can. So I've mentioned this already. I would love to bring in Kirk Cousins as our backup. I think his starting days are probably over. I think he could be a starter in the NFL. I just don't see another team that would suit him well as a starter. So I would love to get Kirk O'Chains as our backup quarterback and have Stafford, Cousins, and Stetson Bennett as our QBs. I think that would be a perfect scenario. And if anything happens to the 38, 39-year-old Matthew Stafford, I'm fine with Kirk Cousins coming in for a game or two. I think the Rams can still win a game with him much more than the odds of them winning a game are with Jimmy Garoppolo. I think Kirk Cousins is much better. You have a what the heck is his? I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. What is his name again? The guy that you drafted out of LSU,
Garrett Nussmeier.
right? So if you take him, I'd still rather have him than Jimmy Garoppolo, in my opinion. But
Wow.
on to round six, pick 207. I'm gonna stay on the defensive side and go Jalen Husky, the safety out of Maryland. I think re-signing Cam Curl is fine. I think at this point in the draft, it's round six. When you get to these last few rounds, you're not looking to draft any guys that are gonna compete for a starting job on the defense, really, unless you get like a hidden gem, like you get the next Tom Brady or something like that. You're most likely not going to find any starters here. But these are just guys for depth purposes, and I think they're going to get guys for depth in the secondary. Just after last year, I know, Jalen Husky is not a corner, but he had 4 interceptions last year for Maryland in the Big Ten last season, in college. So I would like to see them take a guy like him, just for depth purposes. You know, it's not. It's I don't. No disrespect to Husky. I don't think this is like a hidden gem. I don't think this is like a, you know, oh, you found a diamond in the rough at pick 207. But I think it would be a solid pick. I think if we have injuries in our secondary like we did last year with Akello Witherspoon, or yeah, I think Forbes is hurt for a little bit, or we had so many guys hurt in the secondary last
Yeah.
year. So adding depth to that position, or like add safety or defensive back, corner, whatever, I think it's a good move. So Jalen Husky pick 207 from Maryland, the safety. That's what I have.
Okay, yeah, I agree with a lot of the stuff you said for sure. Once you get into those, really, I think after the third round, you're pretty much drafting for depth and for hope and for
Mhm.
the future. Players that could develop slash be role players for you. I stayed in the secondary as well. I went with cornerback Jaden Kennedy from Oregon.
Okay.
I don't know a ton about him. I did a little bit of research. I don't know how realistic that would be, him still being there in the draft simulator that we used. He was still there on my draft board, and I liked the player, so I took him.
Hmm.
Just a little few facts about him. Over his college career, he had 7 sacks. So capable of rushing the passer from the cornerback position. I would assume that would primarily be a lot out of like the nickel and dime plays like that.
Right.
Uh, and he had 2 interceptions last year starting for Oregon. And one thing I really liked about a couple of these players I had in our later rounds, he played 49 games in his college career. So I think that's very important. No
Okay.
disrespect to Ty Simpson, but college experience does matter, and
Yeah.
games played to me does matter. So, the longer you play, the more experience you have, the sharper you might be, and hopefully the better you'll be at your craft. So, yeah, I went with Jaden Kennedy, Oregon cornerback. Like the pick.
Nice. I like that a lot. I think they're similar picks. Husky, as well. They're both guys in the secondary that just add depth. And like I said, you cannot have too many corners after last year, after all the guys that went down, and then the guys that weren't playing great, or even the guys we lost. I know we added some corners, but we also lost guys like Witherspoon or Kobe Durant. This is a completely new, revamped secondary for the Rams, besides like Cam Curl, and I'm all for it. The secondary, not to point fingers, but you could argue that the secondary was the Rams' biggest problem last year, and it it
For sure.
it may have costed them a chance to win a Super Bowl. You know, so I don't mind take I don't care if they take 5 guys in the secondary in the draft. I'm all for it. So I think that's a good pick. Uh, Now we go to round 7. This is obviously the final round, but it's not the Rams' final pick. They have 3 picks in the 7th round, picks 232, 251, and 252. At round 7, pick 232, I have the Rams staying on the defensive side of the ball, taking Jimmy Rolder, linebacker from my Michigan Wolverines. I'm a Michigan fan. I'm not too familiar with Rolder, but I know that the Rams could absolutely use some more depth at the linebacker position. I know I'm blanking on his name. I'm so tired, but the linebacker we signed from Detroit for special teams. I know we got
Oh,
him.
Grant Stewart, is that
Yes,
his name?
Stewart. Yes, I know we got him to. That was basically like a Troy Reader replacement. But I could see
Yeah.
Jimmy Rolder kind of playing that role as well. You can't have too many linebackers. I like Omar Spates, but I don't know how much the Rams like him. I could honestly see Nate Landman paired with somebody else before the start of the season, whether we draft somebody. Maybe we draft a linebacker earlier in the draft to replace, kind of compete for that second linebacker spot with Omar Spates. Or maybe we trade for somebody. You never know what the Rams are going to do with Les Snead as the GM. You never know, because this is a team that has a famous quote that says "F them picks." So who knows? Maybe they'll trade all these picks and this whole video is useless. We have no idea. So uh, but what I'm trying to get at is that the Rams could use another linebacker, even if he doesn't play many snaps defensively and he's a special teams guy. I think Rolder could play that role. And like I said before, the Rams love taking some Wolverines in the draft. So I'm gonna go with Jimmy Rolder, the linebacker from Michigan, at round 7 pick 232.
Yeah, I really like that pick. I know that they are interested in an inside linebacker for sure. I've heard that from multiple sources that
Hmm.
they're targeting one. I've heard many names mentioned. Just speaking really quick on inside linebacker, I definitely think it's possible we could add one. I actually really like Sean Dolak.
Okay,
Kind of a lesser known guy on the roster, came out of Buffalo last year and played his butt off on special teams and just worked his way up.
he
He's
did.
a chronic overperformer and just always seems to, be right place, right time. And I think he could possibly have a future starting in this league someday. Just a name to look out for.
Yeah.
He had a really good career at Buffalo for sure. Uh, I had us though picking a defensive lineman. I know we added Laryl Murchison. We got a lot of those guys back, but you can never have enough big guys in the middle to clog things up. So
Hmm.
I just went with some D line depth. I picked Tyler Onyedem. I might be butchering that name, but interior defensive lineman out of Texas A&M. I know they had a
Okay.
really strong defense last year, and he was a big contributor to that. He played at Iowa State for the bulk of his college career before transferring in the portal last year to A&M, and they had a really good year last year. A&M, all things
Yeah.
considered, I know out here in Texas, they're one of our biggest schools, and I know for sure they had a good year. Their defense was really strong, and just a big body muck things up there in the
Hmm.
middle. And I do think whether it be edge rusher like you talked about earlier or interior defensive linemen. I think it's realistic they could draft both. I do think maybe the start of this draft will be okay. Let's try to go skill position, and then the latter half I think will be let's add defensive role players. In my
Yeah.
opinion, and I think that's kind of the way you've somewhat done yours as well.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I did mine too. And speaking of Dolak, real quick, I actually thought it was funny because I was looking at I always look on eBay for like cheap Rams jerseys just to see if anyone's selling like, whether it's an old player like Cooper Cup or it's just old player like Eric Dickerson or some random player that I think would be funny to have a jersey of. I saw a Dolak jersey on there, but it was like $100. So I was like, I don't know if that's the smartest purchase, but I like what you said about him where he plays his butt off on special teams, and it's true. So yeah, shout out to Sean Dolak real quick. But yeah, no, I like that pick. Kind of beefing up the defensive line, whether it's on special teams or just, if a guy like Poona Ford needs a break from trying to stop the run or Braden Fisk needs a break for a play, you throw him in there. I don't think that's a bad pick at all. I think it's a good pick. Um, on to pick round 7, pick 251. I am staying on the defensive side of the ball once again, and I am taking Vincent Anthony Jr. He is an edge rusher from Duke. Pretty much the same reasoning you gave for your last pick. I think it's just kind of to beef up the defensive line, have guys in there that just they're not going to get in there a lot. They're more special teams role players to start their career with the Rams, but I think it would be a solid pick. It's round 7. Take what you can get. I know Anthony Jr. was pretty solid for Duke. I know Duke isn't known for football. I know they had a pretty heartbreaking loss in basketball yesterday. Oh my goodness. I don't know if you saw that, but that was pretty crazy.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, that was nuts.
I picked UConn to toot my own horn. I
Really?
had that upset.
There
Yes,
you
I did.
go.
Yes.
There you go. Yeah, my bracket's busted. I think I'm like in my percentage is like 20 or something like that, which is awful. So this is why we have a football podcast and not a college basketball podcast. But yeah, I'm gonna go Vincent Anthony Jr., edge rusher from Duke. Pretty much the same reason why I think they're gonna take Rolder or Husky or more in the later rounds, just to kind of add depth to the defense.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. I definitely 100% think that's realistic. I went back to the offensive side for my second to last pick. I went with tackle Enrique Cruz Jr. out of
Hmm.
Kansas, who I will be honest, I don't have a lot of knowledge. I'm not an expert on Kansas football, but
Hmm.
I saw he was one of like the top 10 rated offensive tackles in this draft. And I think we definitely could use some offensive tackle depth with Rob Havenstein retiring. Lord help me if I ever see AJ Arcuri ever on the field again. And I know DJ Humphreys is gone too, thankfully. So yeah, we need some form of tackles added in here because we do have Dave Quessenberry, but
Hmm.
I know there's still a few swing tackles out there in free agency, but I don't know how willing we are to spend money on tackle right now when there's a couple other positions we might need. But I feel really good about the interior of our offensive line, so I think adding a tackle, if anything, offensive line wise, would be the way to go in this draft theoretically.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. You can never have many offensive linemen, even if they're just there for depth. You can never have too many. Um, that was a big problem the year after we won the Super Bowl. I think we set the record for 14 different offensive line
Yeah.
combinations. That's an NFL record. I believe the number was 14. It was 14 or 15. Either way, in 17 games, to have a different offensive line combination for almost every single game is insane. So I'm scarred from having offensive linemen get hurt, and now we have Rob Havenstein retiring. So I don't think that's a bad pick at all. I think that makes a lot of sense. However, I do really like McClendon Jr. and
Me too,
I
for
uh
sure.
I think they really like him too. I've seen I did want to comment on this after we're done. I may as well comment on it now because we're on the topic. But I was looking through some Rams mock drafts, and a good amount of them have us taking offensive tackles in the first round at pick 13. I wouldn't be happy with that at all, even though I know I'm saying, you can never have too many offensive linemen. I just don't think that makes sense at pick 13. If you want to take an offensive lineman round 3 or later, please do. I think that makes perfect sense. But there's no point in using a top 15 pick on an offensive lineman when McClendon Jr. can just be Havenstein's replacement. And I think we're fine everywhere else on the offensive line. Um,
Right.
that actually leads me to my last pick, pick 252. I have Pat Coogan, center from Indiana. Like you said, it's just offensive line depth, and you got to keep in mind, I'm not gonna sit here and act like I'm an expert about Pat Coogan, the center from Indiana, but they did win the national championship and had the best offense in college football last year by far. He had to be a part of that. I mean,
Right.
I can't imagine them having this incredible offense and then their center is just not good at all. So I think getting him in the last round would be, I don't want to say a hidden gem, but I think that's kind of a steal. And
Right.
he's projected to be in that range, like late in the seventh round. So I think if the Rams could scoop him up, and worst case scenario, one of our offensive linemen get hurt, and he has to step in there. I don't think it would be the end of the world as if we had an injury elsewhere at a different position. So I have Pat Coogan, center Indiana, but my main point is that I don't think the Rams should be taking an offensive lineman early in this draft. I think if you want to take one late, like a guy like Pat Coogan at pick 252, totally fine with it. I don't want to use the 13th overall pick on an offensive lineman. I think we have one of the most underrated offensive lines in the league. They do a great job protecting a 38-year-old quarterback in Matthew Stafford, and they were a big, obviously, no, I'm not discrediting Matthew Stafford, of course. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in football. But I think the offensive line was a big part of why he won MVP because they did a great job protecting him and him throwing over 40 touchdowns, whatever it was. I was a huge shout out to the offensive lineman being able to give Stafford the time to throw the ball to Puka, Devontae Adams, or at the time Tutu Atwell, whoever it was. They did a great job. I don't think we need to change much on the offensive line, but some depth like Pat Coogan, I think would be a great pick. So, who do you have for the Rams' last pick in this year's draft?
Yeah, just really quick, I 100% agree with you. I really like all five of our offensive linemen, and I do not want us to pick tackle at 13 or
No.
trade down and pick one in the first. Like you said, for everything you said, I agree with you. I don't want to pick an offensive lineman in the first 3 rounds unless he's going to turn into like Bruce Matthews or something. Uh, Last pick though, I went with a pick who another pick I'm praying we don't make, but one I think is very realistic with this last pick so late in the draft.
Uh oh.
Someone I know for a fact we are interested in, a kicker, sadly enough. Drew Stevens out of Iowa. So a kicker with a big leg. I know we got Mevis, but I know for some reason this is a guy I know the Rams are really interested in. And
Hmm.
but I don't remember. Mevis went to Mizzou. Okay, so just
Yeah.
similar colors. But yeah, so he went to Iowa. He's got a really big leg. His accuracy was somewhat sus, but he's got a
Okay.
long leg. So maybe this would just be a camp guy to challenge Mevis, or you know, whoever knows. Maybe it'd be a kickoff sort of thing nowadays, because I know for a while they were trying to do like the whole, you know, Ethan Evans with the whole pooch kick. Who knows? I don't know this
Yeah.
guy's kicking prowess. I just know he's got a big time leg. He can kick it really far, and I know we're interested. That's the only reason I had this guy on the list at our last pick. I pray we don't pick a kicker, though. I do like Mevis a lot.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I think that's a guy we could take, not necessarily a guy we necessarily want. As kind of cruel as that sounds, but we don't want to draft a kicker. We don't. Even if it's in the seventh round at pick 252, we don't need a kicker. I think we're fine with Mevis. However, I'm a little scarred from the last few years after we lost Matt Gay. We have not been able to find a kicker. I'm hoping Mevis is that guy to just be consistent and be able to make a 45-yard field goal any given Sunday. But I'm so scarred after guys like how Cardi ended up. I really liked Cardi at the beginning of his career with the Rams. Maybe not so much at the end. Sam Sloman, if you remember him, that kicker that couldn't
Yes.
kick over 20 yards. Our first year in SoFi. Number one, Sam Sloman. I don't know why I remember that name, but I do. Who are some other kickers we've had since Matt Gay? Uh, I can't think of any off the top of my head right now. But
Did we have Brett Maher after Matt
oh
Gay?
my gosh, don't get me
I
started
just
on
know
Brett
him because
Maher.
he's a Cowboys legend. So I know we had Brett Maher for a while.
He was not the best in a Rams uniform to say the least. I'll take it easy on him today. I won't trash his name, but yeah, he was not the best in a Rams uniform for sure. So I wouldn't hate if they drafted someone to just give Mevis a little competition and say, hey, like, you have to be on your A game or else we got this guy we just drafted in the seventh round. Just a heads up. But at the same time, I think Mevis is fine. I think he's a solid option at the kicker position, and we don't necessarily need a kicker. We're not going to find Brandon Aubrey in the draft this year or anything like that. So, but
Right.
but like you said, it's something that could happen. Not that we want to happen, but it's something we could happen. So, yeah, those are our picks. Our Rams mock draft for 2026. I believe the draft starts April 26th this year. I think it is. I think it's that day. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure it's April 26th. So less than a month away. Do we have any other? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but do you have any other predictions or anything like that, even if it's not Rams related, for the draft this year?
Mm. Yeah, man, it's tough. I do think that Ty Simpson will go in the first round.
Mm,
I don't know if that's a hot take. I think someone will take him. I know Arizona's interested, our division rival.
mm,
They need a quarterback. I think they just have Gardner Minshew and Jacoby Brissett right now, so
yeah.
they definitely need a young quarterback. There's a few other teams that could use a quarterback, and Ty Simpson's decent, so I think he could go in the first round. Hot take, maybe. Let's say theoretically the Rams do trade up. A guy I know we're interested in, who you know what I'd be all for. Let's I'd be down with let's trade up for Carnell Tate.
Mm,
That'd be fun. I know you're not an Ohio State guy, but
yeah.
dude's a beast,
Yeah.
and it seems like every Ohio State wide receiver who wanders in the league is an absolute dog. So yeah, I'd be fine with trading up for him if we or that Notre Dame running back. I know that's crazy to think about, and I hope for your sake that that's just a rumor and they don't trade for the running back, because I think it would be at your boy Blake Corum's cost. I
Yeah.
think it would cost our 13th pick and Blake Corum to whomever we trade up for, and that would be the deal to pick Love. So I have heard a lot of great stuff about him. I really like Blake Corum too, though. I know, he might not be prime LaDainian Tomlinson, but who is? And I don't
Yeah.
know if Love is either. So we'll see. We'll see.
I'm gonna be honest. I might be biased just because Blake Corum was one of my favorite guys at Michigan when he was there. But I thought taking him in the third round was such a steal at the time. I thought he should have been like early second round pick. I really do. I think he's a very talented running back. I think he has the talent to be like a number one running back on plenty of teams in the league for sure.
I agree.
I think Kyron Williams is probably a top seven running back in football. He fixed that fumbling problem at the second half of last season. He was great, and having Blake Corum as that kind of Kyron Williams decoy, because sometimes you can't even tell who the heck is on the field with numbers 22 and 23, and they look the same with the helmets on, so you can't even tell sometimes. Like sometimes I'd be like all right, nice run Kyron, and then they pan the camera over and it's Blake Corum or vice versa. So
Yeah.
I really hope they don't trade Blake Corum. Speaking of Blake Corum though, I think we talked about this last week or the week before. I can't remember. Do you think that he changes his number because
Oh,
of
we
Travis
did talk
Kelce?
about
I think we
that.
did talk about this, yeah.
Yeah.
I have a Blake
Yeah.
Corum jersey, and I really don't want him to change his number because that would suck because he's number 22 on my jersey. So maybe,
Yeah, I haven't heard anything for sure yet. I don't know how attached McDuffie is to that number, but like
mm,
you said, you mentioned in our video he wore two in college, so
yeah,
maybe they could work that out.
yeah, we'll see. So I'm going to be honest, I don't think there's many outcomes of this draft where I would be sitting in front of my TV and I'm like just pissed that they took a certain player. I don't think there's any outcomes unless they take a running back or an offensive lineman in the first round.
Wow.
I'd be really mad if they took a running back in the first round because I think that would be the end of Blake Corum. And if it's not the end of Blake Corum, he'd be our RB3 and he's better than an RB3 for sure. So I would be mad if we took a running back. No offense to Love from Notre Dame. I'm not a big Notre Dame guy, but no offense to him. I just don't think there's any need to take a running back. I'm fine with our running game right now. Um, if Les Snead wants to go burn a first round pick and go get someone like Jameer Gibbs or Jonathan Taylor, go ahead, be my guest. But realistically speaking, I think our running back room is fine right now. Um, and like I said, I also don't think an offensive lineman in the first round or one of the first rounds would make any sense. I think our offensive line, our running back situation is good. So, one more thing before we wrap this up. I had a question for you about pick 13. Do you think there's any way the Rams take Makai Lemon? And if so, would you be happy with that or not happy?
Yeah, definitely someone who I've researched a lot about because his name's been attached to us so much. Here's where I'm at with Makai Lemon. I think he's a little bit of a knucklehead, which we already got a little bit of that going on with Puka right now.
Mm,
Hopefully McVay's nipping that in the bud. I've heard him talk about it a little bit. So that's a concern. Another concern is just like Puka as well. Lemon, from my understanding, basically plays out of the slot.
okay.
So I think that would kind of be taking somewhat away from what Puka does best.
Mm,
Like I said, I'm not a USC expert. I do know Lemon had like a crazy number of big plays, and obviously the talent is there. And I think he's capable of being a really good wide receiver at the next level, possibly even the best in his class. Who knows?
mm,
But just for me, something is telling me to stay away from these first round wide receivers. Just
mm,
in my opinion, I don't love any of these first round wide receivers. Same thing with the quarterback. I don't want us to take Ty Simpson in the first round. I don't
mm,
want us to take an offensive tackle. I can justify Kenyon Sadiq because he's a bit different than these wide receivers are. He plays tight end, and we do sort of need a tight end. But who knows? Who knows? If we do take a wide receiver, I'll try to just be happy with it. But I think it's extremely possible that we trade down and pick whomever that may be, whether it's Ty Simpson or an offensive lineman. I could totally see us doing that.
Yeah,
Or Chris Bell. I could see us
yeah,
trading down and picking Chris Bell.
yeah. I'm gonna be honest. I saw something on ESPN when I was trying to do my research for this mock draft, and they had us taking I'm gonna butcher this name, Dejon Stribling, wide receiver from Ole Miss at pick 93, which I have no problem with if they do that because we had them both taking a receiver in the second round, so I don't care if they take one in the third round instead. That's fine. But the description they had uh, was the Rams are thin at wide receiver, other than Puka Nakua and an aging Devonte Adams. I I don't I don't agree with that because you're saying that oh they're thin at wide receiver other than the best wide receiver in football. Like what? And Devonte Adams, a future Hall of Famer. Like that's like saying oh yeah the Rams have a big quarterback problem other than Matthew Stafford. Like that doesn't make any sense. Like I'm fine with them taking a receiver in the second or third or whatever round to get a wide receiver three or a wide receiver four, um, just to get depth at that position. But to say that we are thin at wide receiver when, in my opinion, we have the best wide receiver core in the NFL, I think that's blasphemy. I think that's crazy, and that's coming. By no means am I trying to, say that ESPN doesn't know what they're talking about. They're ESPN, but I think they're wrong there. I don't think that makes much sense to me. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but to say the Rams are thin at wide receiver, other than the best receiver in football and Devonte Adams, who I think is like at least the top seven receiver in the NFL, who led the league in touchdowns last year, I think that's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Most of the time ESPN doesn't know what they're talking about, but um I hate to say it, I somewhat agree with that take that we're thin at the wide receiver
Mhm.
position. And that's why theoretically I personally I want us to draft Chris Bell or whoever it may be and still sign a wide receiver because I think there is a depth need there. And I think we saw it a little bit in the playoffs. We do play a lot of 13 and 12 personnel. So, like you said, I'll hit a LeBron quote for you really
Okay.
quick. We're top heavy as you know what. That's a quote from his day back in Cleveland. So we do have maybe the best two wide receivers in football as a duo. An aging Devonte Adams is still better than probably mostly every wide receiver in the league outside of maybe 5 or 10 players. And Puka, he's that guy, whether he's got his off the field problems or not.
Yeah.
So I do still like Jordan Whittington. He's got some potential in a third/fourth role.
Hmm.
And I thought Kanata Mumpfield showed some potential too.
That's what I was
I
gonna
don't
say.
like Xavier Smith anymore, really, honestly. He's decent at wide receiver, but I don't trust him anymore. He's lost my trust.
Yeah.
And that being said, I do think we are in need of a. So I agree with you in the sense we're set. We have our wide receiver one, two, maybe even like four, five, six, but we
Mhm.
still kind of need that three, four wide
Yeah.
receiver in my opinion. So,
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll add a couple of wide receivers. I agree with you. We have the best wide receivers in the league. Currently, at this point, though, I somewhat agree with what they're saying that we are thin at that position.
I agree that we need a wide receiver three. I just think saying we're thin at the position is the wrong way to word it because like the Rams like I was saying they need a backup quarterback. That doesn't mean they're thin at the quarterback position. That just means they need a backup QB. We're not thin at wide receiver position. We just need a wide receiver three or four. That's all.
Right.
So I think a guy like Antonio Williams in round two from Clemson, like I predicted, then that would work. Chris Bell, that would work. But I just think saying we're thin at the position is the wrong way to word it. So, but we'll find out. Draft month. Draft month is here if you're watching this in April because this is going up either March 30th or 31st. So it's basically April. So happy draft month to the people watching this in April. So If you're watching this, also please subscribe if you're a Rams fan or you're an LA sports fan. Subscribe to this channel for every Ramblin' Rams episode. 24 episodes in the books already. Kind of crazy to think about. Episode 25 coming next week. Stay tuned, and we'll see you guys then. Peace.